Welcome, everybody. Let me work on my controls here for a minute. There we go. Okay. We're actually
there you go, Steve. Gotcha.
Ah, is that you, Adrian? Hi there.
Hey, how are you this morning?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Doing good.
Good. Okay. We're just going to talk about one thing, and we're recording this for posterity for some reason. So I guess we can't be too smart alecky.
Dial it back down to 8.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we're just going to talk about the 2 to 4 unit building policy, which just got announced on Wednesday, just so you guys know what some of the requirements are. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the new test measurements form too, because that kind of folds in here. And then we just want to leave it open for questions. This is more of a free-for-all discussion as opposed to a real formal kind of presentation. So I think you're all unmuted. Is that right, Tracy? Everybody's unmuted. So just if you have a question as we're going through it, just blurt it out and we'll kind of deal with it. I think that'll be fine. Okay.
And Diane, can you hear us?
Diane? She's there. She's unmuted. Oh, that could be, yeah. And let's see on the chat window. Well, Diane, do this. If you can hear us and you're listening, please type something in the chat window in case you can't speak to us. Give us a sign. Okay, well, we'll, oh, there we go. Can you speak, Diane? Okay, yeah. I'm hoping you just tried to say something. Well, maybe not because we didn't hear it, whatever it was. Try it again, Diane. Say something again, please. No. We cannot hear you. That's correct. Okay. So I guess for your questions, you'll have to use the chat window. And we'll just go ahead and monitor the chat window and make sure we talk that way. Okay? All right. Okay. 2 to 4 unit buildings. We just announced this on Wednesday to participating contractors. They all know about it. Some of them are very excited to do this. Some of them really probably aren't going to be doing this. So I think when we get right down to it, we get to the bottom of this, 2 or 3 months from now, that there's only going to be a handful of contractors actually doing this because a lot of them don't have access to these kinds of buildings, but it's open to everybody. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an idea of what the ground rules are, and there will be more stuff out on the contractor website on Monday, and FAQ, and more details, and an official policy statement, and all of that stuff. So anything I don't cover here, you might want to go and check that anyway, because I'll probably forget something while I'm talking here, even though the bullet points won't remind me of everything. Okay. All right. So 2 to 4 unit buildings. We're defining those as any building shell that has any kind of residential ownership structure. Doesn't really matter. It can be condominiums. It can be townhouses. It can be tenants in common, which is real popular in San Francisco, and it can be apartments. I'm going to skip down here. It cannot be any mixed-use buildings, no commercial buildings on the first floor, commercial space on the first floor, the residential units above it. That doesn't apply. We're still sticking to the no propane rule. So if they do have propane and they want to get into the program, they have to get rid of the propane first. So that hasn't really changed. Here's the 2 interesting new twists. We're having property owners participate, not apartment dwellers, okay? And all property owners have to participate. So for instance, if it's a condo building or a townhouse building or tenants in common, everybody has to pretty much be able to get along and sit down and be nice to each other and all agree that they're going to do this, okay? For apartment buildings, that means that the owner of the building is the person that agrees to do this. Now, of course, he has to sit down with his tenants and get them all to, agree that they want to have people come stomping through their space and, blowing insulation on their walls and all of that. But the property owner is the only one that has to agree they're going to do this. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, though, is that each unit applying has to have a separate meter. So you cannot have any single meter going to multiple units for any of the utilities anyway. It could be for water or for sewage. We don't care about that. Just for the utility, utilities themselves have to have separate meters, because this goes back to the idea that we need service IDs. Okay? So that's how we start with this thing. Let's see, I had a thought there. Oh, let me just define a couple of terms. Participation. And I might actually get to that here on the next slide. Let me see where that gets me.
So this service ID, so each unit is considered kind of like a house.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And you'll see, and the way we're approaching the application, it's treated like a house for the most part too. Yeah.
Would there ever be a condition where there's a sub-metering situation, where there's sort of like a master meter and then they sub-meter accounts like that, or they give them separate accounts entirely?
Right. Sub-metering won't work. It's got to be a PG&E administered meter. Yeah. So, yeah, we pretty much need to have service IDs for everybody. Okay. So going back to the idea of participation, what that means is that all the property owners have to agree to at least be tested. Okay, the first requirement is that all units have to be tested in and tested out. I see that's the lower bullet point here, okay? And it's the standard tests we're already doing. It's duct testing, blower door testing, CAS and CAS testing. Everybody has to do that. And like right now, although this is not always strictly enforced or followed, we just had a discussion earlier this morning, all CAS failures are supposed to be addressed immediately by calling PG&E or being fixed by the contractor, or they have to be included in the job scope if they're not immediate health and safety type issues. So that hasn't changed, okay? So that's the participation part. They have to do the testing. The next thing they have to do is at the end of the job, every unit in the building has to have all combustion appliances in the building must be either power vented or closed combustion, moved outside the building shell, or sealed off from the living space with adequate combustion ventilation, air, and exhausting. So there are a couple of different options there. The one we like the best is all power vented or closed combustion, but it doesn't always happen. If you move it outside the building shell, that also includes attics and garages. But if the third point, sealed off from the living space with adequate ventilation, air, and exhausting, could still leave them in the attic or the garage. These are sort of like listed in order, preferred order from best to worst. If they do have it somewhere in the building shell, they have to prove that it's sealed off from the living space by basically two methods. One is worst case combustion testing, but the other one is doing a blower door pressure differential between that sealed off space from the living space. So we want to make sure that there's no communication there. Okay? So that's what participation means. Everybody has to do all this stuff, but not everybody has to apply for an incentive. Okay? So you could have a 4-unit building where everybody agrees it gets tested and everybody agrees that their combustion issues will be dealt with according to those guidelines, but let's say only one of those 4 units actually applies for a rebate. That's okay. We don't care. But everybody has to participate, but not everybody has to apply. I guess that's the terminology we ought to stick with. Okay?
So, Steve, if they ask on this, if they take and send an application in, say for the middle unit in a 4-unit building, say it was 3, then all 4 get tested, but they only, the rebate only applies to that third unit.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's sort of like, it's involuntary as far as the testing and the combustion stuff goes, but it's voluntary as to whether they go for a rebate or not. Yeah.
Okay.
So they moving the CAS outside of the building envelope and upgrading the the combustion appliances are required for all 4 units, though.
Yes. Yeah.
There is, and they're doing work. It's just a matter of what their full scope is. It's voluntary.
Yeah, well, they might all end up doing work. Yeah. Now it's possible that just moving, they might take their existing 80% furnace and move it outside the building, or seal up the cabinet it's in and ventilate it properly. they won't be able to get an incentive on that. But they've got to do that, yeah.
And just to clarify, when you say power vented or sealed combustion, power vented refers to negative 50 CAS limit, no induced draft. We're talking power vented, positive pressure.
Right. Yes, positive pressure out, yeah. I mean, you can have closed combustion with and without power venting. So either one is okay. Some of the closed combustion are just, they're not negative draft, but they're atmospheric kind of, you know, because there's no, well, yeah, there's no separate power venting unit. Some of the closed combustions actually have small built-in fans that do the positive pressure, but they're not called power vented, is my understanding of the terminology. The power venting is a whole separate kind of fan assembly to make sure you get the thing power vented. You know.
Mainly, I just want to make sure that we are clear with contractors trying to claim mechanically assisted or induced draft don't qualify.
Right.
Okay.
That was actually one of the first questions that came up when we did the beta announcement here with the select small group of contractors was, do induced draft furnaces, does that meet the requirement? No, it does not. Yeah, they're negative draft still. So they've got to be moved outside or closed off or replaced, yeah.
Okay, so I've seen a power vented unit on the top of a water heater. I've never seen one on a furnace. Is there such thing? This would be an exterior addition to
the box.
To the box, right?
Yeah, no, I've never seen that. Well, usually when I've heard the term power vented, it has to do with water heaters.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever seen anything like that, Sean?
I want to get a sealed combustion.
Yeah.
95 or so.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
For furnaces. Yeah, because with furnaces, you've already got a fan in there.
Right.
Okay.
And so, well, actually on the high, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I've never seen a power vented furnace.
I've never seen a power vent. I don't think they're available either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend maybe jigging one up.
Yeah, that's just a weird concept.
Okay, so we're only looking at the power vented for a water heater in this case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or direct vents count, right? Power vent, direct vents.
Direct vents, yeah. Yeah.
And it is an either-or situation, right? So
Yes.
either they move the CAS outside,
Yes.
and in which case they could have an induced draft or whatever, not atmospherically vented,
Yes.
natural.
Yeah. Natural or induced draft, yeah.
Right.
Either one.
Or they do the power vented or sealed combustion if they keep the CAS inside.
Yes. Yeah.
For now,
Yeah. Okay.
cutting it off from the interior.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, for those that choose to apply to the program as opposed to being forced to participate, in a friendly way. That's why we ask all the owners to participate, because they kind of have to agree to all jump on board with this thing. But for those that choose to apply for an incentive, they have to do a separate application for each unit. So we treat, like Russell said early on, we treat each unit as like a little separate single-family home, kind of, sort of, okay? Has to be modeled individually. So for you modeling crazy heads out there, you start talking about, well, you don't have crawl spaces or attics in all cases. You have, you'll have ceiling and floor structures that might be just, you want to set those to 100% solar reflectance, like you might do with a garage wall, to indicate that it's not. It's a weird hybrid, because you can't say it's a conditioned crawl space, although that might actually be a valid thing for a middle unit. There's no such thing as a conditioned attic per se. So some of the modeling requirements are a little bit weird. I'm sure we're going to get questions about those, and we haven't really thought it through totally. But you could simplify it and just get rid of crawl spaces and attics altogether for the middle units. So this is a little bit of a gray area still. And we'll hash that out as questions come up. But you have to do a separate model for each unit. Common areas don't get modeled. So for instance, a common area hallway type of thing, you would treat that as an interior wall next to conditioned space, okay, so on and so forth. So some interesting twists there. Regardless of how you model it, let's sort of skip that gray area for now, because I'm sure it'll come back up time and time again for a while. Just like the current program, the incentives are based on the percent savings per unit. And you have the same tiers, starts at 15%, goes up in 5% increments and $500 increments. But what's going to happen typically is that certain measures are not going to equally benefit all of the units. Let's say everybody participates in a 4-unit building, and let's say it's a 4-plex where they're stacked 4 stories high, and there is an attic, and there's attic insulation that goes in the top one, and there's air sealing. Chances are that the attic insulation is going to benefit the top unit pretty well, but not do anything for anybody else. And chances are is that the air sealing are going to benefit everybody, but to different degrees, depending. And probably the top unit, again, will get the most benefit there, but maybe not. You don't know. So, for instance, I looked at this triplex in San Francisco yesterday, and on the 2nd story, there was a china cabinet next to the fireplace. And we lower doored the thing, and you open up the drawers in the china cabinet, we're getting a whole lot of air coming through there. Now, there was no fireplace or china cabinet on the 1st floor, and I don't remember looking at the 3rd floor, but because there was air coming through there in big volumes, chances are it was attached to the attic pretty openly. So there was probably an issue on the 3rd floor. So that's kind of a case where, okay, 1st floor, air sealing is not going to do the 1st floor a whole lot of benefit probably, but the 2nd and 3rd floors are going to do better because of that, assuming that the air sealing takes place in the attic. So every building is going to be a little bit different, and we had a lot of questions about, well, shouldn't everybody be getting the same amount of money, and they're not going to all be equal, and how do we explain that? And that's just the nature of the beast. So you'll probably get issues, questions from contractors, and you'll probably see weird applications where, let's say, they do their infiltration, where they assume they're going to air seal, and they give everybody, whatever CFM reduction from the starting numbers. Or maybe they're assuming they're going to get them all down to the same, test out building leakage number. Well, that's probably not going to happen. So there could be situations where they're predicting a certain size of incentive and they're just not going to get it on all the units, and just weird things like that. So you'll need to be prepared for that kind of thing. Okay, questions on that stuff?
How are we going to know as reviewers whether all the units are participating?
We'll get to that.
Oh.
Okay. That's coming right up. Okay.
On Steve,
yeah.
On units though, like condos mentioned earlier, like say condos, where you got downstairs and upstairs, those units could be modeled where you would have floor and attic in all 4 of those, correct?
Yes.
How would
side by side?
Oh, they're side by side, you said?
Yeah, they're side by side, or front to back, 2 in the front.
Oh, yeah. I heard you say they're above and below each other, but I think
condos side to side. In other words, like up here where I'm at, we see a lot of those fourplex condos like that, and so they'll have when they're modeled like that, they would actually have a floor and an attic on a situation like that.
And really, the only difference there is that those with interior walls next to the others, you would want to set those to a 1 solar reflectance to indicate that it's
no solar gains.
Some other non-exterior space, yeah.
Right.
Or not model it. Could you?
Well, you have to model it. You have to model the wall.
Yeah. Covenant used to, or maybe they don't still, but they used to just not model that wall.
That's a comment from Torsten. He said Covenant in cases like that would just not model that wall, and that doesn't work. Yeah, that's inappropriate modeling. Now it might not have that much of an effect if you make it a 100% solar reflectance, but you've got to put the wall in there. Yeah, it can make a difference. I've seen it make a difference. Okay, Diane, I see you. I just looked at the chat thing, and I see you have questions. Let me scroll back up here.
Oh, no, this is the first one.
Oh, that's the first one. Okay. So if they don't necessarily reach their target, so if they don't reach their target, they will not necessarily need to be rejected. Oh, that's a question from Ruth. Is Ruth in the room there, Adrian?
Yeah, she's in the room on another computer, but she doesn't have a headset.
Oh, okay. I'm curious what target that is she means. Is that like an infiltration target or any kind of testing target? I'm guessing, let's assume it's any kind of testing target.
Yeah, it's a testing target that they have set, right, Ruth? Yeah. Yeah, you were just talking about testing targets that had to be reached. So what her question was basically is that if they don't reach that target, it would not necessarily mean they would not need to be rejected, correct?
Not necessarily. I mean, if they totally missed it and they were kind of borderline, then yeah, they might very well be rejected. It all boils down to the rejection criteria. All boils down to when you test out, are they still over 15% or not?
Gotcha.
So yeah, so that's the only way they're going to get rejected. Either that or a really bad post-installation application. But that's, of course, as you all know, we negotiate those and fix them up. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Or we try to. Yeah. All right. Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Thank you, Ruth. All right. So contractor qualifications. Here's a little bit more of a twist. What we're doing is for any contractor that wants to participate in this program, we're requiring that we do a field verification of their testing of a multi-unit building, okay, and the first one that they want to submit to the project. And I just did our first one yesterday on this. We have to go and observe it, and basically what we're looking for is to make sure that we have a warm, fuzzy, comfortable feeling that whoever this BPI building analyst is actually knows what they're doing. And so yesterday I was actually asked to verify 2 people in this program, and one of them actually did just fine for the most part, and the other one really didn't do very well. So I'm going to approve one and not approve the other one and suggest that he needs a little bit more field work first. He just didn't quite have it dialed in well enough because we want to make sure that when you go out and test these buildings that if there are combustion issues, they're going to be caught. With a single-family home, there's a little more leeway there, but when the houses are hooked to each other or the residences are hooked up to each other, we've got to be absolutely sure, and PG&E's made that really clear. So each BPI building analyst that wants to do this has to be observed and pass, and then after that, well, we have to do a test-in and test-out observation. But chances are, if they make it through the test-in, they're going to make it through the test-out because the test-out hopefully should be easier. We'll see how these things go. And then we actually are going to keep a list of people that have made it through the process, and we're going to incorporate that into the EGI system as well. So once they do that, then they can submit all the multi-unit buildings, all the 2 to 4 unit buildings they want. And the BPI building analyst, this is really actually not a contractor qualification. This is a building analyst qualification. So for those guys that are like freelancers or work for multiple contractors, if they pass this observation for one contractor, they can then go and do multi-unit buildings for other contractors without being observed. So it's really tied to the analyst.
So,
okay.
And every project, if they want to submit, if they haven't been tested yet, they've got to have this done before they actually can submit that project. Correct, Steve? Yeah.
And they have to be on that special list. Yeah.
Okay.
And EGI is going to track these, like I said, and so they shouldn't be letting any I keep saying multi-unit, but a multi-unit to PG&E means more than 4 units. I have to keep remembering to say 2 to 4 unit projects.
Right.
Any 2 to 4 unit projects, EGIA is going to check to make sure that the BPI building analyst, the test in and the test out has already been observed and we've signed off on them. Yeah. So, and for anybody who asks, not this audience most likely, we're not charging for that observation. It's just like a field verification or a mentoring kind of thing. So that's the contractor / BPI building analyst qualifications.
So we just don't need to worry about tracking that BPI. EGIA will take care of that.
Well, we should. That list should be known to everybody doing reviews.
Okay.
Because if you get one of those, you shouldn't even bother. It should never make it to EGI. It should be rejected right at the front end.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that was my next question, Steve. Because if we're looking at it from the desktop review, if we don't know if that BPI number is qualified,
yep.
We need to be able to stop it at the beginning stages so that they can get that in before they submit it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming all of you have access to the EGIA database, right? Mm-hmm. You're able to look at that. Yeah, and so it should be. I just talked to Eddie about the implementation on that, and they're going to be putting it in their database. I'm assuming that it's going to be something you can actually look up and check as well, as opposed to us having a separate like Excel spreadsheet that we put on the server, pass around by email, and all that kind of crap.
Okay.
Hopefully that'll be the case. If not, I'll work with Eddie we can make it that way. So if y'all have EGI access, that would be the proper way to check it. It's kind of like checking service IDs up front. Same kind of deal. You know. Okay. That's contractor qualifications. Now, let's see what else we've got. Questions. Okay, there actually is another document I want to show you. As a result of this, we've got, give me a second here to fiddle with my screen. We've got, let me fiddle with the screen some more. Okay, here's the other document. Okay. We now have a new 2 to 4 unit test measurements form.
Uh-oh.
Okay, Gmail doesn't like doing this stuff, so let me get out of this and go back and make that go away right there.
Cue elevator music.
Yeah, I'll make that. Let me go back here. Boy, she had it on the screen before. Oh, maybe down here at the Adobe thing. Yes, there we go. Okay. All right. So now, okay, so this is what the form looks like, but this not only applies to 2 to 4 unit projects from here on out, but we're also going to start requiring this for single-family projects as well. We've had a lot of issues with the previous test measurements form, so we're rolling out a new test measurements form. It's going to be uploaded to the contractor resource pages as of Monday. The only difference between the single-family version of this and the multi-unit version of this is that, I'm sorry, the 2 to 4 unit version of this is that the 2 to 4 unit version of it will have this same this same page times. So they're supposed to, however number of units they have, they're supposed to fill out one of these pages for each unit in the building and submit it as a group. That's the only way we're going to know for sure that it's a multi-unit project. There is a flag in the Compass that they're supposed to set, but we also need verification. There's a flag in Compass that's going to be there, and I'm not quite sure where that is. I think it's on the primary building page, and I'm not quite sure when that's going to be rolled out, supposedly Monday also, but I'm not positive about that.
That PSG is claiming Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the drop-down list in the edit building section.
Yes.
And it'll be clear because there will only be 2 things to select now.
Yep.
And it's supposed to be rolled out by Monday. We got confirmed that they're going to do it by Monday.
Yay. Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
And all builders are going to be notified of the new form?
Yeah, they already have been.
Oh, okay.
We did a webinar on Wednesday, and I think 70 contractors signed up for it, and about 50 some attended it. And we talked about the 2 to 4 unit thing that we're going over right now. We talked about the new test measurements form, but we didn't drill down on it in a lot of detail. Excuse me. We just said, here it is. I gave them like a 5-minute explanation. For anybody doing the BPI testing, there shouldn't be any mysteries here. It's just basically a new layout. But, you know, there will be questions, issues, comments, confusion, all that normal stuff. But we told them this is going to be out there Monday also, and we'd like them to start using it right away for both new single-family projects and 2 to 4 unit projects. Okay. So for the 2 to 4 unit one, like I said, you should expect to see however many units are in that building, regardless of how many applications you get for that building. You should, for every application, you should be getting a 4-page test measurements form with 1 page filled out for every unit in that building. So let's say it's a 4-unit building, but only 2 units actually apply for an incentive. You should get 2 copies of this, 1 with each of those applications, and each copy of that should have 4 pages of test information on it, 1 for each of the 4 units. And you'll get 2 copies because there's 2 units applying. Does that make sense?
Yep. So that.
Okay. Okay. So that's the 2 ways you know if these are multi-unit projects. One is that drop down in Green Energy Compass on the edit building page, and then you should be getting this 2 to 2 to 4 unit thing here, and it should say at the top, the difference between these, at the top of this one, it says EUC 2 to 4 unit test measurements version 1.0. The other one is going to say PG&E EUC test measurements form version 1.2 or 3, or maybe I'll make it 2.0 or something. Okay? So they're identical except for the heading and the number of copies of this page within them. Okay? So you'll see, let's go through the form. We might as well, because you're going to have to start looking at these things. Shouldn't be anything different here. Let me make that go away. Okay. I took out some of the contact information and kind of condensed it. I did a lot of condensing here just because I wanted to get it all on one page. Condensed the contact information, took out some of it. Here's the BPI building analyst, insert number, test in, test out, and test date. Okay. There's enough information here that you should be able to uniquely identify the project, you know, and keep it aligned with the other documents. You know, between the owner name and the address, that should be plenty. Okay. Building infiltration. Here's our CFM 50. We're asking them for volume. The volume, we only absolutely positively have to have the CFM 50. And I think in the final version of this, I'm going to mark fields as required or not required just to confuse people even more. But positive minimum is the CFM 50, just like we have now. We'd like to see them fill in volume and the Lawrence Berkeley Labs N factor. Adrian, you did get your BPI, didn't you?
Well, I get mine the end of this month, but I will have it. I had it once before, but I'm familiar with what we're talking about.
You know the N factor. So we're hoping they're going to fill in the volume, and it should be close to what's in the model, and the N factor and the ACHN calculation, because the PG&E target is 0.35 air changes natural per hour. That's what they'd like to see. So we're just trying to plant that in their mentality. You know, people are going to screw this part up, and they're not going to do it right, or they're not going to fill it out.
I've got the chart. I got the chart with the LBL N factor, and the formula for calculating it. So that I'm familiar with. Okay.
If they don't do it right, if they don't do the calcs right, don't reject the job. You know, just maybe write them a note and say, you know, come on, this isn't rocket science. Try and do better, so they can ignore that note. No, that's the important thing. Okay. We got to have the CFM 50. The duct leakage section, again, nothing new or different here. CFM 25, calculation type. No, that's a bug. Okay, well, we need to fix that. You know, nominal heating or cooling, actual supply or return. There's a few more choices there. This goes back to our conversation this morning with Katrina about measuring supplies or returns. You know, actual supplies returns. And so here's the method. If they're doing actual of any kind, we want to know what that number is. And if they're doing leakage to outside, we just want to know that they're doing that. What we want to do is we want to make sure that on their test in and their test out, they're using the same duct leakage testing methodology. Okay? Because
so they're not switching it up on us.
Yeah. Because, you know, you can, I mean, yeah. So just for consistency, otherwise the incentive calculations make no sense. And so that's what that's all about. Okay. Then we've got whole unit combustion testing and CAS zone testing. For the whole unit, we're basically looking at gas line sniffing. We want to see a pass-fail there. We want a whole house carbon monoxide reading. One of the things we rolled out this past Wednesday was the new PG&E augmented combustion safety guidelines. And this is something we're gonna have you go through the training on this when we get a little bit further on down the line.
Okay.
Actually got training penciled in for February 21st or 22nd. It's an all-day thing, and that's assuming I get the training done by then, which it looks like I will. We're going to walk you through all the new PG&E combustion testing stuff, just to make sure that you understand it, at least as much as you need to. And,
Steve, now, do you have a location for that, or is that going to be on web?
We're going to try and do it in person, but we're also going to do a webinar as well, just to save you travel, you know, anxiety, or, you know, hassles, travel hassles. Yeah.
Travel hassles, okay.
Yes, all of that miserable stuff, yeah. So we'll see where that goes. Okay, so for the whole unit here we're talking about, this is basically the whole house combustion testing. So it's stuff that applies to the whole house. We're looking at the gas line, and that's sniffing everything, it's like from the meter in to the appliance maybe, or some cutoff at some point, because there's also gas sniffing down here for, or is there gas sniffing? There's supposed to be gas sniffing down here per piece of equipment.
Well, how about across the top of where you just were at?
CAS Limit, gas and flue. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
This is a little cryptic. Okay, this is just to fit everything on one page. This is gas sniffing right here, pass-fail for this appliance, and here's flue pass or fail for that appliance. Okay, that's a flue inspection. Okay, so at some point you stop sniffing the house and you start sniffing the appliance, and that's kind of up to who's ever doing the sniffing and where they like to draw that line. We're just hoping they sniff everything and record passes and failures wherever they define they are.
But in order to allow them to move to the next stage, in order to give them a notice to proceed, basically, they need to they need to put something in notes about what they did about it failed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, we got to kick it back to them and say, hey, what did you do?
Yes. Yeah.
Make sure something gets done.
Yeah. Well, and the basic rule still is, if it's a failure on test-in, you need to deal with right then and there. If it,
yeah.
And PG&E has specific trigger points and specific things you have to do. Like if the gas sniff fails and you can't correct it, you've got to call a PG&E guy right then and there. And they've got to come out and fix it, and you cannot proceed with your work until it's fixed. And every one of their trigger points, and it's more detailed than BPI, but fortunately it's a little more specific too. Every one of those trigger points has action requirements that have to take place, and they pretty much define whether you can proceed or not. And we've got a CAS action guidelines checklist that covers all that stuff, and they're supposed, in addition to doing the test measurements form, they're supposed to take the action guidelines out, check them off, and everything on there should agree with what's on the test measurements form as far as failures and what they did about it. So a lot of those what you did about it questions should be answered on the CAS action guidelines form, but maybe not all. So this is an extra burden on the contractors. They're going to hate this, but PG&E wants it, and it's from a combustion safety perspective, it's good stuff, but it's more paperwork.
Are they going to need to absolutely put in the model numbers, or if they can't get it for some reason, or nameplate's not there? Or...
Yeah, the model numbers are not required. Yeah, let me finish up the whole unit, and then we'll go down there. Yeah, okay. Back to the whole unit. Okay, we're looking at gas line testing, a whole house ambient CO reading, which PG&E has defined, and you'll see all that stuff. And then for the stove, oven, the broiler, and other, we need to get a CO reading and an ambient CO reading. And the difference there is the CO reading is either directly in the flame or the combustion source, whatever that is, like or like with an oven and a broiler, you want to get it, it's supposed to be dilution-free air. So an oven and a broiler, you want to get it before you get dilution air in there. For a stove, it's 6 to 12 inches above the flame. For the other, PG&E says, well, gas log fireplaces should be called other, okay? So those fall into this whole unit area here, and you're supposed to do a CO measurement 12 inches above the flame, okay, for like a gas log kind of thing, okay? And then the ambient CO is further back from that combustion source, like in the room or in the CAS zone or close by, but not 6 to 12 inches from the flame. So it's a little further back. It's sort of like what's happening not in the combustion source, but what's happening in the room. Okay, and so they have definitions on those too. And typically, let's say like in an oven, it's supposed to be, I think, 12 inches back from the oven and 4 feet up in the air, kind of, that kind of thing. So they're pretty specific about all of that stuff. So this is where you test all the things that apply to the whole house. So once we get down to there, then we go down to your traditional CAS testing, according to BPI. Now it's got 5 columns. The assumption here is that no single unit is going to have more than 5 combustion appliances outside, the stove and the broiler and the oven and all that stuff. As soon as we send this out there, some house is going to have 6 probably, okay? We'll deal with that if and when it happens. But, I mean, 5's a lot. Katrina was telling us about a house this morning, a big house that had 3 furnaces and 2 hot water heaters. That was a pretty big house, 6,000 square feet or something. So hopefully 5 will be enough. If not, we'll invent something on the fly.
Can't they just submit another form?
They could submit another form, yeah, but it'd be a separate form, and it'd be a source for confusion, but that's the logical thing to do, yeah. Yeah.
What about putting a button down at the bottom that allows them to add CAS limits?
Well, we could, but then you get into the thing where with 4 units in there, it just starts getting messy, and you'd have to push everything down. And we might be able to do that. Yeah, that might be a nice, clean solution. I'd like to try and keep it all on one page if possible.
Yeah, there are be very few that have more than 5.
Yeah.
There's some that have 5.
Yeah.
And one of them is a fireplace. The other 2 is
double water heater share too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So for 5, if one's a fireplace, they should put that up in the other section up above. Yeah, so, I mean, I haven't seen one with more than 5. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Yeah.
Individual wall-mounted air conditioner heaters.
Electric, so.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Yes. Yeah, the wall heaters, though, you could have
Gas
a gas air conditioner?
Not a air conditioner.
Okay. But, the wall heaters for sure, yeah. Yeah. And I could see a bigger house might have 5 of those scattered around, and then water heaters, yeah. Let's pretend that's not going to happen for now. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a question over here, I think a little flashing.
Oh, a question. Okay, let's see. Okay, Ruth, how do we know if they took action or not? Okay. And this goes to, and I think I might have answered that after you did the question. If they took action, the action guidelines, action guidelines, which is a 3-page form with about 50 checklist items on it, has very specific action requirements. So in most cases, that form is going to indicate what they did. Okay, at least in theory. Now, if they can't put it all in there or something else comes up, they should put it down here in the notes section down at the bottom of this form. So we've got this for like overflow circumstances or weird things or whatever. Okay, so between the 2 of those, I think we should be pretty well informed. The other thing that happens is if it's something that PG&E says needs to be put in the scope of work or needs to be addressed before you can continue. If it's in the scope of work, that solves that problem. We just saw one of those this morning, and it was kind of sort of in the scope of work. So those are the only 2 mechanisms we have right now. Hopefully they'll deal with 99% of the cases, and then in the other 1%, I guess we call the contractor and say, okay, what the heck's going on? Or make the note sections bigger, or find a solution. But I think that'll cover most cases, hopefully.
So these are they supposed to download or upload the combustion guidelines, the augmented combustion guidelines?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so we'll get another form.
Yeah. And this is going to be posted out on the resource page of the contractor, I keep want to say the portal, but the website Monday also. That's actually, yeah, it'll be Monday. All these documents will be out there by the end of the day Monday, including, the PG&E requirements and an upgraded contractor handbook and install specifications and stuff like that. So they don't actually have to submit the action guidelines absolutely positively until they go through the advanced training.
Hey, Steve, what is that website where the contractors can download this information from?
builditgreenutility.org.
Okay.
That's where they go to get all their documents typically. Okay. So I'd say by the end of the day Monday, go out there and look in the resources section and get the latest versions of this stuff, if you want to look at them. So yeah, here's the deal on the action guidelines. Starting with the advanced training is going to start being offered towards the end of February. Everybody in the program has to take that, and that advanced training is for the new PG&E combustion stuff primarily. But I'm also going to hit on, advanced duct testing and install specifications and some other stuff too. Everything that we're going to do like a BPI review too. Just go over everything where we feel like people need more training or more, reinforcement or whatever. Go ahead, Tori.
But you've only currently approved one BPI building analyst to do any of these tests. So
That's different, though. We've only approved them to do 2 to 4 unit projects, not advanced. They haven't done the advanced training, and they don't have to fill out the action guidelines. Two different
action guidelines are going to be required for everybody.
Everybody's going to have to do the action guidelines once they go through the advanced training, which starts in February. And the advanced training is going to be limited primarily to BPI building analysts in the program, and maybe some of the contractor primary, owners, those types of people, field crew leaders. But we're going to, because the only people that need to know about the enhanced CAS testing stuff from PG&E are people that are actually doing it. So we're going to restrict it to those folks for starters. Okay. So as soon as somebody takes the training, they're supposed to fill out the action guidelines checklist and submit it with the job. And how we're going to know, we're not going to keep a list of who's done the training and what date they did the training, and then start checking every job to see, okay, they submitted it on this date. Did they do the testing before or after the action guidelines, after they took the training, and do they have to submit it? That's like a sticky administrative thing. And I'm not sure we want to try and enforce that because it's just one big pain in the butt. But in theory, that's the right way to enforce that policy. What we're encouraging people to do is to start using the action guidelines stuff right away before they get the advanced training. And, we'll just start checking it, and if it looks flaky and we're starting getting bad submissions after the advanced training has started, then maybe we should just start checking. And all those that are submitting really flaky action guidelines, then it makes sense to see if they have done the advanced training or not, to make sure they know what the heck's going on. So this is messy, I know. Not my policy. I'm just the messenger. So, but I'm sure somebody's going to want to shoot one or all of us at some point. That's the way it goes.
You may keep the door locked.
Yeah, really, and don't answer them.
That's hard.
So to go. Okay, that's sort of the deal with the advanced training, and you're all going to have to do it as well. Okay. So to go back to the original question, let me make this thing go away so I can see what the heck I'm doing here. Back to the CAS section of this form. Okay. Across the top, they get the location here. Now, let's say they've got, and this is probably going to be the most confusing thing for people. Let's say they've got 5 combustion appliances and 2 CAS zones. They need to fill out all 5 columns, but for the location, they only need to put in the names of the 2 CAS zones. So the first 2 might say attic, and the next 3 might say garage, depending on where the equipment is. Okay.
But if there's a combustion appliance, each location has to be filled out.
Yes. Yeah, because we want to know. That's really. I might change that. That's really the CAS zone name is what it is. Okay. It would make sense to tweak that. Yeah. And then for the equipment, we do want to know what kind of equipment it is. So that's required. Model number, not so much. I mean, they're supposed to be getting that anyway, at least on the test end. But it doesn't really affect anything, so I don't think we should beat them up about that. The input and output KBTUs here, so that we can double check there if it's a case of duct testing and they're using nominal, we want to be able to double check. And we'd like to be able to cross-reference it to the scope of work or the proposal too, and to what's in the model. Again, that's one of those things, like if they've got, on the JRT, they've got one number, and on the CAS or the test form, they've got another number, and in the building model, they've got a third number. What do you do? So if they don't put it here, I don't think we should hold their feet to the fire unless there's confusion about what's going on. But I'd like to get everybody thinking that this is the primary reporting document, and this should match what's in the model. But this is sort of, your judgment call when you're doing the review on that one. Yeah. On the gas and the flue, we want those for sure. We want to know that they gas sniffed. And we want to know that they inspected the flue and that they passed or failed. Absolutely. So locations required. Everything else is kind of optional, but gas and flue are required too. So I think, the need for doing required versus optional, I think is definitely, I should do something about that, yeah. Okay. Then for the CAS limit testing, nothing new here. It's basically your base case, and your worst case, and then the net, that's where they do the math, and if I can get this thing set up, I'll do the math for them. You know, I don't mind doing that. That's easy. And the limit, we want to put the limit in because we want them to assure us that they know what the limit is for that particular CAS zone.
But it should be a drop-down menu, though, because people make dumb mistakes and put non-limits in.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Yeah. Let me make a note. Okay. Okay. So we got required drop-down. Yeah. Now I'm just going to do that by number, though, not by equipment type.
Right.
Negative 2,
negative 5,
yeah.
Is there 3?
15, negative no. Yeah. Or is there?
Yeah, there is a 3 for.
Oh yeah, that's right.
5, 15, and
50. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. That should be easy to do, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I'll screw that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. Like.
So yeah. So then we want to see a CAS limit pass or fail right there. Okay. And since they've got, let's say 5, let's go back to my scenario, 5 appliances, the 2 CAS zones. They need to fill in the location for all 5, but there's going to be, you know, only 2 location names. They don't have to fill in the CAS limit testing for all 5 because there's only 2 CAS zones. So let's say they've got 2 in the attic. One of those 2 in the attic should have the CAS limit testing filled in. And they've got 3 in the garage. One of those 3 should have the CAS limit testing filled in. Okay? In my wildest optimistic dreams, I was actually going to write something up in time to put it with this form, you know, so like directions, like what I'm telling you guys, but it's not going to happen. So, you know, I'll get to that really soon. Okay. So, but that's what you need to know. For every CAS zone in the top section here, there needs to be CAS limit testing. Okay. Then, when we get down to the CAS testing section, there should be one of those filled in for every appliance, okay? And we go back to, here's your classic spillage. Now right here, this is one reason why it might be nice to know up here, you know, the equipment type, the model number, the input-output, you know, that kind of stuff, because, well, you know, maybe what we need here is something more open or closed. Yeah, because that would give us a clue as to down here whether they need to do anything here or not. Okay, so let me make a note there. I'll say for CAS, open, closed, whatever. Yeah, okay. Okay, that would just help us get through this stuff more quickly. Because if it's closed combustion, they don't have to do these first 3 items right here. If it's a B vent, they don't have to do the second and third. You know, and so on and so forth. So
CAS limit should tell us that, but they don't always do that, right? So the secondary means of verification by putting another field.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Okay, but regardless of what these first 3 things say, we should have a worst case right here, always based on the CAS limit up here, but it's per appliance. All right. Let me
worst case per zone.
Worst case per zone. Yeah, that looks like an error. I think I can take that line out and capture one. Okay. Good, I'm glad we're reviewing this. I was going to tweak it this afternoon, so this helps a lot. Okay, so they should definitely have an ambient CO. Okay, finally we found one that they definitely have to have under all circumstances. Okay, got that one, all right. And one of those for every appliance, regardless of the zone. And then down here we've got notes. So that's kind of it for the test measurements form. So just to review, okay, the single-family version of this is going to be the same as the 2 to 4 unit version of it. The 2 to 4 unit version of it is going to have 4 pages. And we're going to want to see one of these filled out for every unit in the building. Not every unit applying for rebate, but every unit in the building. Okay? So that's kind of it in a nutshell as far as what we wanted to cover today. This is a good, I know this CAS thing, I'm gonna tweak it this afternoon and I'll send it out to you guys again and let you take a look at it if you have time. If not, I understand you all have lives and, you know, weekends and, you know, stuff like that. This is short notice. I did send a version out about a week ago or so, but nobody really had time to look at it. And, you know, that's the way that goes. No big deal. And I've changed it. Yeah.
Well, you didn't send it to me, Steve.
Said what? Oh, I did just now?
No, you didn't send it to me. I would have looked at it a week ago if you had sent it.
Oh, okay. Well, I apologize. I thought I did.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll send it to you. Well, I'll wait until I tweak it.
Yeah,
Then I'll send it.
tweak it and send it. I'll look at it.
Okay. And if you look at it before, you know, Monday morning, I'll have a chance to fiddle with it over the weekend and repost it too.
Okay.
You want to do that? Yeah. Okay. So let's see, Diane. I haven't seen any questions from you. Are you good with all this stuff? Just give us a sign, any kind. And Ruth, we got your questions. Oh, you have another question. Okay. Oh, up at the top it says owner name and address does not specify whose address. Oh, good one. It's the person. It's the address of the unit. Okay. So for instance, yeah, it's not necessarily the person applying for the rebate. Okay, because it could be an apartment building, and it's the owner of the apartment building applying for the rebate and doing the work, but we need to know who's in the unit so we can identify it, because it's going to be filed under, well, what would it be filed? It's going to be filed under the service ID, which would be the owner, the person who's on the service ID of the utility account. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
And it should be changed to job address?
Yes.
Job name and address.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because that is confusing. All right. Fortunately, we control this form now, so we can tweak it every time a little tweak needs to be done. Okay. Job straight address work. Good. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Yes. Let me see. Yeah. Hopefully the contractor will know that, Ruth. Yeah. Okay. Good, Diane. Thank you for that. Okay. So anything else? That's all I'm seeing. Okay, from the silent folks out there. So yeah, so like I said, we'll post all this stuff the end of the day Monday. It goes into effect Monday. The advanced training goes into effect as soon as we start offering, which will be February 27th through 29th, and hopefully we'll get something scheduled for you guys prior to that. If not, we'd like to get you into the first trainings. We might be taking the training on the road. Everybody wants to do that, but there might be some things we really want to do up at PG&E because they have testing facilities and stuff.
To do it.
That's to be determined. I'm trying to avoid that, but there might be some things that we just have to do that way. So I think we're done.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Great.
Steve.
Sure, no problem, and keep those cards and letters coming. What can I say? Have a good weekend.
Getting with checks or cash or good?
Checks or cash are good too. Yeah. Yeah. Or those human resource rebates, personnel rebates,
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
You know where to find us.
Okay. See you
Take
guys
care.
later. Thanks.
Okay, bye.